alert later today. A portion of Interstate 29 remains closed this morning.
The river rose to historic levels that we've never seen here before, and it's hard to deal with that much water. It's a monumental undertaking.
And you just heard from a police officer in Rock Valley, Iowa. The water was so high, the fire department rescued hundreds of people and animals from their homes. Thousands of people were evacuated. Much of the city is also without clean water because the wells are contaminated. The governor activated the National Guard and requested a federal disaster declaration. The National Guard was also activated in Minnesota to help with the flooding. Rob Coles has that story.
With streets still flooded in downtown Cook, Ryan Horner trudges his way into his business for the first time in days.
I mean, it was emotional. I hadn't actually seen it. I saw pictures of it, but it's one thing to see it, when somebody shows you a picture of what it looks like in there. Another thing, when you actually go in there and look, it just, just the magnitude of it, it's just a bit overwhelming.
He's the owner of the Comet Theater. He says it's the oldest single-screen movie theater in the States. Now it's underwater.
Well, the hardest part, too, is that, this is our busy season.
Governor Walz heard from Horner and many others in Cook Friday during his tour via special vehicle of the Cook flood damage. Walz is raising awareness for people to keep track of their repair costs.
I can't stress this enough. Whether it's public sector things or whether it's your individual things, keep receipts for everything.
If the damages reach a certain cost threshold, federal money may become available. While volunteers, first responders, and more clean up, residents are finding new ways to help each other.
So green stakes in the yard, all it means is a green stake in the yard is that you need a volunteer help to come and clean out your basement or clean out whatever you need to or clean up from flood damage. I wonder if anybody's at the VFW yet.
Cook native Tiffany Briggs says a Cook resident came up with the idea to help people in the community of all ages.
I think a lot of people still aren't on social media. We have a lot of older population too that they might not be comfortable with it, and it's kind of an easy, quick visual.
A community coming together to lend a helping hand.
Meantime, the National Weather Service confirmed at least 4 tornadoes touched down in southern Wisconsin on Saturday. One of those twisters leveled an historic church with 105-mile-per-hour winds. The storm also damaged many homes, uprooted trees, and knocked down power lines as well. The upper Midwest remains at risk for more severe weather this afternoon and going into the night. A cluster of severe storms could potentially produce destructive wind gusts in Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin. A slightly lower risk extends to cities like Chicago, Fort Wayne, and also Grand Rapids, Michigan. And now to the heat, which will continue for many portions of the country this week. Today, the worst of the heat bakes the South and also portions of the plains. 57 million Americans face heat alerts today, including excessive heat watches and warnings. Now that's down from 100 million on Friday. Later in the week, temperatures will rise once again in the Northeast and also the Mid-Atlantic. Many heat records fell over the weekend. The temperatures rose to 100 degrees in Washington, D.C. on Saturday, making it the first time our nation's capital hit the century mark since 2016, a span of more than 2,800 days. And wildfires in New Mexico have now been burning for 6 days. They've burned more than 25,000 acres. While some evacuations have been lifted, there are still some areas where residents are waiting to return. Eileen Herrera has more.
Evacuations for Ruidoso residents are starting to lift. A couple telling me they think they'll be allowed back into town tomorrow and they can't wait to be back in their home.
Home isn't much, but it's your home, and when you have to leave that, it's not fun. And
Kathy White says her home did not make it through the fires, but she is staying positive.
We'll hopefully find some place to live. Right now there isn't any place, but once everything settles down, hopefully we'll find something to live in while we rebuild.
Meanwhile, in the Alto area, crews are working to get power lines back up. The area is still facing a different danger with multiple flood advisories. Some of the sludge with debris and even tree logs making their way down the mountain here. Some homes burned to the ground and areas completely charred by the fire. We're making our way through the area affected by that South Fork fire that started burning almost a week ago, and almost a week later, homes in the area still smoldering. Cars left behind by residents melted, leaving only the frames behind, plus the smell of burned debris still present throughout the village. The FBI is joining on the investigation as to what started the fires. People tell me if the fires were deliberately set, they hope the person responsible is found and held accountable.
There's a lot of talk, a lot of hearsay, and I personally don't know why anybody would want to do stuff like this. It brings out a lot of anger, a lot of emotion, a lot of different emotions.
And there's some good news in Oregon when it comes to wildfires, thanks to drought conditions. It's a lot different this year than last year. Shelby Slaughter explains.
Oregon is in pretty good shape right now when it comes to wildfire season. Maps from the U.S. Drought Monitor show a big difference between this week and the same time last year. As you can see, there's a lot less yellow on the map right now, which is a good thing.
We've been battling drought for years. There are still some parts of our state that are abnormally dry, but we've made up a lot of ground because of a really wet winter we had this last winter.
Storm Tracker 2 meteorologist Rhonda Shelby tells me while we're mainly in the clear, some parts of eastern Oregon need to stay on alert. It's for these reasons that firefighters like those over at Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue are making sure they are ready to go when they're needed.
All of our firefighters are trained in the wildland suppression tactics. And then we have a team that's actually dedicated more specifically to respond to state deployments that might happen.
Even though drought conditions in Oregon are a lot better than last year, wildfire risks still exist. For example, firefighters are working to get the Long Bend fire under control. It's burning about 4 miles southwest of Maupin, which is a couple of hours outside of Portland. The fire has burned 2,000 acres, 5% contained at this point. Cleanup efforts continue in Utah, where flash flooding hit Moab on Friday. The quick-moving storms dropped large hail in some places and left many roads, covered in water. Christian Sida shows us what happened.
A heavy rainstorm leading to severe flooding.
I didn't even know that could happen here.
Yeah, we didn't even think we were gonna get a drop of rain.
Yeah, because it's so dry. Yeah.
Converting the streets into rushing waterways.
For that, we had a big, huge hailstorm, lots of rain, wind, there's a lot of debris, and then the flood came.
The floodwaters seeping into the roads, homes, and businesses. Now cleanup efforts have begun.
We've been through this before. It's a lot of cleanup work that needs to be done.
Joette Langus, the Moab mayor, is talking about the cleanup for the 2022 flood that is still happening. Crews are putting up barricades and warning tape as they work to bring the park back to the public.
And Friday's full moon appeared bigger and more colorful than usual. That's because it happened just one day after the summer solstice, when the moon is low in the horizon. The June full moon is known as the strawberry moon. Native American tribes are believed to have given it that name because it happens when strawberries are ripening. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, mosquitoes can be a major problem in the summer months. We'll look at why the recent extreme temperatures could mean an increase
Off showers and thunderstorms through the afternoon, evening, clearing skies as we get into the overnight.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
This rolling thunder shower moved across the Providence River in Rhode Island Friday afternoon, dumping sheets of rain along its path. This darling young deer seems to be having a good old time in the San Antonio heat, splashing in this rain bucket. These playful pooches also having fun in the water. They're challenged to catch as much water in their little mouths with every leap and angle.
For more content like this, like the National Weather Desk on Facebook.
We talk a lot about the dangers like rip currents when heading to the ocean. The Great Lakes are not as vast or deep as the oceans, but they can still be dangerous for swimmers. Meteorologist Will Haney explains.
One of the biggest differences between swimming in the Great Lakes versus the ocean is the shorter wave period, the time between crests. See here, just as I go to grab my board, another wave knocks me back. A struggling swimmer often has little time to get their bearings between waves.
If you're ever struggling in water over your head, we want you to flip, float, and follow. So flip over your back and you float to keep your head above water, to calm yourself down from the panic of drowning, to conserve your energy, and then follow a safe path out of the water. So you have to float first, exit strategy second.
There's three main types of currents we see in West Michigan. First, longshore currents. These flow parallel to the shore. They can pull swimmers down the beach and sometimes into deeper water. Here, you'd want to just swim straight back to the shore. Next, a traditional rip current. Here, a narrow current of water flows straight out. Even an Olympic swimmer can't beat their force. In this scenario, you'd want to swim either parallel to the shore until you're out of it, or follow the current before curling back once you feel its pull letting up. Lastly, structural currents. These happen when wind and waves pile up against a structure or pier. These can lead to especially dangerous waves immediately adjacent the pier, often called the washing machine. A current can also form. You can attempt to grab a ladder if one is available, but crashing waves can make this extremely dangerous. Your other option is to follow the current out somewhat before you feel its pull weakening, then curl back in towards the shore. Children or adults in inflatables can quickly find themselves blown hundreds of feet from shore, especially if they fall asleep.
The wind's kicking 25 knots the other direction. You can't swim against that.
So if you ever get blown offshore on an inflatable device, always stay with the inflatable. Try to signal for help.
Heading to the water is just one summer activity for many. Getting out in the garden is another way to enjoy the summer months. But keeping your garden clean and free of insects and diseases can be challenging. Meteorologist Ryan Munn has some tips for getting the biggest and best plants possible.
Insects and diseases can happen at any time, especially to plants. Keeping a garden free of weeds and debris is the best way to do this.
Making sure you're going through your gardens and pulling out the weeds. The weeds can harbor a tremendous amount of insects, good and bad. So we want to make sure that we clean out the unwanted things that will reduce the pest and disease.
Tom Estabrooks from Estabrooks Garden Center says the earlier you clean out the weeds, the better.
So we have good pests that are in the garden that is attacking the bad pests. So it's important that, we kind of harbor those on our good plants. So by removing the weeds as they're young, we will make sure that the good pests that are attacking the bad pests are going to stay on the plants you want them to.
Tom says cleaning weeds out allows for more airflow in your garden.
say, I thought those were roses.
which can be beneficial because this is the time of year problems typically start.
It's a nice warm day today. You're starting to see those disease factors build. The plants now have grown to a point where they're starting to all touch. They're putting on a lot of growth. So, that's the time when we usually start to see problems arise in the garden.
Also, water your plants at the base and avoid using a sprinkler because splashing water can spread insects and disease.
Plants, when they get stressed, they'll put off a pheromone that attract insects and disease. So, limiting your stress on your plants by watering and caring for them really well is very important.
Tom says using organic products will help prevent diseases and insects in the first place. But if you have them, your local garden center has plenty of solutions.
And one bug that isn't so easy to deal with, mosquitoes, and the high heat can make it even worse. Liz Bonus explains why.
Mosquitoes are what's called ectothermic. This means the air temperature influences their body temperature. In hotter weather, their metabolism increases, making them more active. This activity makes mosquitoes hungry. Their meal of choice is called a blood meal. It's the blood of humans, so you get a mosquito bite. The mosquitoes also like hotter temperatures for laying eggs, putting you at higher risk for mosquito-related illnesses, such as the West Nile virus. Public health providers with Ohio's Hamilton County say to get rid of them, you have to get rid of standing water.
Water that goes stagnant or standing for a few days is what mosquitoes breed on. They lay their eggs in the water, and that's how they reproduce. And so if you're able to eliminate standing water, such as in your gutters or bird baths that might go stagnant, then you will reduce mosquitoes around your home.
Your risk of getting bit by a mosquito also goes up when it's hot outside because mosquitoes are attracted to scents, such as sweat. So protection on your skin with repellent is also critical to reducing West Nile virus risk.
For almost all people, West Nile virus goes unnoticed. Unfortunately, in a few individuals, the symptoms related to the disease can be extremely serious and can be life-threatening.
And during the hot months, you may not realize how hot everyday surfaces can get. Meteorologist Amy Aronson gives us some examples.
The hot days of summer are officially here, folks. So let's use this infrared thermometer to see how hot different surfaces actually get. Starting with the playground. As the sun shines down on the swings and slides, they absorb heat. The slide came in a hot 137 degrees. Next up, cars. Cars also trap heat. Like a greenhouse, the sun shines through the windows and heats everything inside the car to dangerous levels. For example, the dashboard in my car got up to 161 degrees. Pavement also absorbs a lot of heat, making it dangerous for our pets' paws. The pavement temperature I tested got up to 115. The grass tends to be better and cooler for our pets. That's because grass actually has water in it, so it takes longer to heat up and cool down, and temperatures tend to stay more steady. My yard was 85 degrees. During the hot summer days, the shade definitely helps these surfaces stay cooler. Early mornings and evenings are the best time to enjoy the outdoors. In Baltimore, Maryland, I'm meteorologist Amy Aronson.
Summer is not only about the heat, it can sometimes produce strong thunderstorms. These storms often produce something called a downburst. Meteorologist Eric Estrava explains why downbursts are more common in the summer months.
Typically occur with some of these storms here in the summer months because of some of the cooler air that comes down out of the storm. In the downdraft, we see that cooler air starting to accelerate out of the storm. And once it hits the surface, it gets even faster because it doesn't have anywhere to go but out. So it expands out. We see some of the strongest winds occurring there, and some of which during microbursts can get up to 150 miles per hour. That is likely what caused that significant tree damage in a few communities here, and we'll likely see more of these storms throughout the summer months in the hot and humid conditions.
And time now for a short break, but first let's take flight over Ocean City, Maryland.
Good Monday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. Taking a look at your weather story across the Midwest here. We are getting into the triple digits out in Nebraska and Kansas for the day today, and pretty hot, close to that in a lot of Missouri and Iowa. So for the day tomorrow, thunderstorms firing up for us across the plains, moving its way into the Ohio Valley as we head towards the middle part of the week and getting hot behind that. So we're seeing a lot of temperatures bounce back into the 90s or at least the mid 80s behind some of that rain on Wednesday.
Good Monday morning. I'm meteorologist Joe DiCarlo. Look at our forecast across the region, and a typical summer day out there. We'll have those temperatures starting off in the 70s, and we'll be mainly in the mid 90s across the region for the afternoon hours. We do have a chance of an isolated shower closer to the coastline, more of a sea breeze shower near the Gulf of Mexico, but otherwise pretty quiet. Temperatures climbing just over 100 degrees out towards El Paso. We'll fall back into the 70s overnight, and then another seasonally hot day on the way for your Tuesday.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Rebecca Stevenson. Here's what's happening across the West. We have excessive heat surging into parts of the West, especially into California and Arizona. We're getting temperatures near triple-digit highs expected in central California, especially in the inland valleys as high pressure gets stronger. Now, monsoonal moisture is moving up, and it's going to create some potential flash flooding across the Four Corners. Otherwise, we'll see things drying out and still a bit gusty at times in the Pacific Northwest. That's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
When it's hot outside, summer rain can help bring those temperatures down. But how do these storms form? Meteorologist Natalie Walters explains.
Let's talk about summertime pop-up thunderstorms, because sometimes it could just be a hot summer day and then it can go to this. Now, given the right conditions, a parcel of air will rise and then cool and condense and form cumulus clouds like you see right here. But if there's enough heat, moisture, instability, eventually these will form what we call cumulus congestus clouds, and then eventually cumulonimbus, which would be a thunderstorm. Now, if you start to see clouds that look like this, that's a sign that a thunderstorm is trying to form and you perhaps have some rain or a thunderstorm on the horizon. Now, these storms typically don't last for long because that updraft is quickly overtaken by the downdraft, but that downdraft could bring some very heavy rain, some gusty to damaging winds, as well as intense lightning and small hail. So when the thunder roars, go indoors.
And if you're looking for some more great weather content, be sure to check us out on social media. You can find us on all your favorite platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, X. Just search the National Weather Desk. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great Monday, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.